this meeting of New Iberia City Council to order. We have the prayer and the pledge led by Mayor Pro Tem D'Angelo.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Oh God, let's pray for the unemployed, the families that cannot support themselves, for those who are unable to work, and for those who make decisions that affect everyday life. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, Lord. Roll call.
Ms. Rowland?
Present.
Ms. Girat?
Present.
Mr. Sweer?
Here.
Mr. Doyle?
Here.
Mr. Merrill?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Present.
And Mr. Begno?
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Great. The next agenda item is public comment, and I do not believe that we have any cards.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so I would also ask that everyone please put their phones on vibrate. And we'll proceed to agenda item 2, which is acceptance of the minutes of the Tuesday, February the 2nd, 2015 meeting as published on Thursday,
Motion.
February 11th, 2016. Motion by Mr. Merrill,
Second.
second by Ms. Roback. Is there any discussion? Any objection? No objection, motion carries. The next agenda item is refunding of the bonds, and if you would read the resolution, Madam Clerk?
A resolution giving preliminary approval to the issuance of not to exceed $10 million aggregate principal amount of revenue refunding bonds of the City of New Iberia, State of Louisiana, the issuer, for the purpose of refinancing outstanding debt of the issuer, providing certain terms of said bonds, making application to the State Bond Commission for approval of said bonds, and providing for other matters in connection therewith.
So move, Mayor.
A motion by Mr. Sweer,
Second.
a second by Mr. Begno. And if you wouldn't mind, we have David Medlin and Jason Akers here this evening to give you a little bit of additional information about the refunding of the bonds. These are street bonds, and we can save, if you'll see, correct me if I'm wrong, $374,456.15 over, I didn't count the number of years.
Not 20, this is a preliminary number.
Yeah.
Right.
This is what they estimate they could sell these bonds at, the particular interest rates now. They do still have to be priced and go in the market, but that's going to be a good number.
Right, okay. I don't know who wants to begin.
Oh, I'll speak briefly,
Okay.
Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
Jason Akers with Foley and Udell. In 2009 and 2010, the city actually borrowed in four separate instances by issuing bonds through the LCDA. And two series of those bonds that were issued in 2009 and 2010 can be refunded now for savings. We refer to this as an economic refunding, and just to give you the best analogy we can give you, if you were to refinance the mortgage on your home and you did it for savings, in other words, you lower your interest rate because interest rates have gone down, then you realize an additional, you're paying less each year, so you're realizing savings every year. That's the same concept here. It's just like refinancing your home mortgage. You're taking the old debt out, putting new debt in its place. The new debt is at a lower interest rate, and you save money as a result. There's no extension of the final maturity of any of the bonds that we're talking about, and the savings result solely from the lower yields that you would receive on the bonds. With your permission today, by adopting the resolution, we would actually make application tomorrow with the State Bond Commission for approval in March. At their March meeting, we would prepare an official statement. The official statement will be put to the market. The market will then offer, when the time comes, an interest rate, and this council will adopt an ordinance actually selling the bonds. So this is just the first of two times that you'll actually see it. Nothing is final until you adopt an ordinance, which will be a couple of months down the road. Again, the ordinance hires our firm as bond counsel, David's firm as financial advisor, and Raymond James, who's one of the premier bond underwriting firms in the state of Louisiana, as your underwriter / investment banker, and they'll be working on your behalf to sell the bonds at the best rate possible. But with all that, the more interesting part is really the savings, and as David mentioned, it's approximately, based on current rates, about $375,000 a year, and that's, you know, anywhere from $375,000 total, and that's a little bit more than we're in the $20,000 to $25,000 a year range right now, and that's savings to your bottom line budget. So if you have any questions, David or I'll be glad to address them for you.
I got a
Mr.
question.
Merrill?
With the current interest rates as far as this started going up in December last year, do you think that'll have a pressing issue on us getting the same type of rates we had before?
I'll address it, and then I'll let David add anything he wants to. The bond market rates are actually independent of what the Fed does with interest
Okay.
rates. And interestingly, when the Fed raised rates in December, the bond market had pretty much priced it in already. Most people would tell you that it wasn't a surprise. What has been a surprise is the other global turmoil
Right.
that's caused the bond rates to go down even further. So the numbers that we're talking about today were actually prepared in January, and David and I and the Raymond James representative, if she were here, would tell you that the market's actually better now than it was then. They move independently of each other. They're tied together somewhat just by the fact that they're both interest rates, but we're in a better market than we were in December for some reason.
Okay, all right.
Mr.
And you're in
Dahl?
a interest rate environment that historically is very good. They're estimating the interest rate on these will average about 3%. And we're taking out bonds that are 4, 4.5, and 5%.
Right.
So
Right. That's a good savings.
Mr. Dahl?
So we're looking at two bonds that we are combined to one bond, correct?
Correct.
And the bonds that was in 2009 and 2010, how many years were those bonds for?
they go through 2035.
The 2009 issue, they were both 25-year issues.
They were both 25 years,
So
so-
2009 went through 34, and 2010 went through 35.
So now we're changing them to a 20-year bond?
There are basically 19 years left on one and 18 on the other, and we're maintaining that integrity. So there'll be 19 years total, but when you look at the principal amounts, we're respecting that the 2009s really only have 18 years left. So we're not spreading any principal into that last year that would otherwise have been paid otherwise. So we're maintaining that same structure throughout.
So the new bonds that we're redoing is for 20 years?
It's really
Like
19
just- okay.
and 19 and a half by the
Yeah,
time
they're
we're
not
done.
extending the length at all.
No, okay. And the monthly or the yearly payment is gonna be the same, less, or a little more? Even though
Less.
we're saving?
Less.
Look at
Be
these
less.
columns.
The one, yeah, they just.
You've got new debt service, old debt service, and your saving looks like about 20,000 on average a year over that time.
But this is only the street bonds, these two bonds?
Right, this is true.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay.
Mayor, if I may actually make a request, and this is a little bit of a departure, but we're looking at some opportunities with respect to this issue, and we think we've provided a preliminary amount of not to exceed $10 million, and we think we're going to be in that. There's a chance, and I just want to let the council know, there's a chance that we may ask for your permission to amend the resolution in a few weeks. We don't think that'll be necessary, but as we start looking, if there's an opportunity for better savings by calling some additional bonds, we'd like to come back to you at that point to amend the resolution. But this resolution today doesn't change without your permission again in the future.
Mr. Lewis?
You're saying in a few weeks, it may change,
Not without your permission.
not without our permission, I understand that. Why not, adopt with the, I'm trying to look for a word, I'm not as intelligent with dealing with this as you
Yes, sir.
gentlemen are.
I think I know what
But,
you're asking, and
yeah.
if I may, you're probably asking, why not wait until we know exactly what we want,
Right.
as opposed to moving forward? And the real reason is for timing purposes. Unless we adopt the resolution today, we can't make application with the State Bond Commission this month, which means that we're delaying the process a whole nother month before we're ever able to sell the bonds. That puts the city at risk to raising interest rates in another month. Refundings are always very time sensitive, and it would be a calculated risk were we to come back to you. It would be a calculated risk for us to say, okay, there are additional bonds that may be called. It would benefit us to delay this going forward. Right now, that's a long shot, and I don't feel like it's worth us waiting an additional month at this point. My advice is let's go ahead and do it now, start the process, and then if it's determined a week or a month from now that there's an additional opportunity, let's address it at that point, but let's take the bird in the hand while we've got it.
Right,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, I'll ask you to please vote your machines. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you both very much.
And I'm sorry, I didn't get the motion in second. Who was?
Robert Swear,
Swear
Robert Swear
and
made the
Begno.
motion, and, Mr. Begno
Great.
seconded.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next agenda item is agenda item 4A, and it's a resolution. I need to make amended if possible. Let me tell you, read it, and then I'm gonna tell you what the amended resolution should be.
Okay. Resolution rejecting bids that were open on Tuesday, February 2nd, 2015 for the city's fiscal year 2015 LCDBG Pershing Avenue Sewer Rehabilitation due to the Daily Iberian only publishing the advertisement for public bids twice instead of the requested and required 3 times. Therefore, all bids need to be rejected and the project needs to be re-advertised.
Okay, after speaking with our attorney, Mr. DeQueer, he said that we actually are not going to reject, we just are not going to accept these bids because the proper advertisement was not done according to the bid law. The Daily Iberian was supposed to advertise 3 times, and they only advertised twice.
So we do need to re-advertise.
We have to re-advertise and put it back out there again. So, I mean, Scott, I guess we should just word it that we're going to, instead of saying reject
Amend
it,
it to say we're not gonna accept any of the bids.
yeah, that we're just not accepting the bids and that we will re-advertise, is basically what we're saying, because the bid law was not followed. Yes, sir.
I can make a substitute motion
Okay.
that says that we will not allow the bids that we opened at this time due to advertising requirements not met. Therefore, we're just not gonna accept those bids. And
Okay.
we will
Substitute
re-advertise,
motion, that's-
rebid.
Second.
And a second by Mr. Lewis. Is there any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Has the bids been open?
Yes.
Wow.
The
When
bids have been
When the
opened.
bids are open,
Lets
I know that
everybody
happened in
what
a
they
couple
got.
of situations in my line of business. Is it not safe to maybe have a different bid or for different services versus putting the same thing out there?
Need to change the specs on the
Yes,
bid?
or change something about it.
Yeah, but that
Because-
doesn't seem-
We can't change the specs, though.
But I know that happened on a project not long ago that I was involved with, and they were open, and they rebid the project, but they had to change a couple things because it just become, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, that's why I'm asking the question. After bids open,
Well, everyone knows what terms
That's
of bids
right.
were, and they can put in new bids, or they can
But-
put in their old bid. That's why we shouldn't reject the bids, because they may put in the very same bid, and then we would have already rejected the bid, which we may later accept.
I just know there was an issue on a project not long ago I was involved with, because of the bids are open. Now, if they were not open, it's a whole different animal. And I'm not a lawyer, I'm just asking to make sure we do it. We don't want them to come back and someone file something because, you understand what I'm talking about, Scott? I don't know the
I
law.
understand. I don't know if it could be done in
I
a
mean,
different.
I think we can change some unit price items in there.
I'm not a lawyer, but I'm telling you what I experienced.
Anything would be better.
Yeah,
Yes.
if we can change it a little bit, it probably would make it better. It would force everyone to put
To
new
rebid.
bids.
That's
and look
correct.
at- look at-
Yeah.
I'm just Just
We
a
can change some
recommendation.
quantities up a little bit.
I think it would be safe.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Palumbo, y'all can make some changes.
Absolutely.
So it won't be the identical.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, wait, hold on, Mr. Begno had his hand up and then Mr.
How many
Merrill.
bids did we get in, Vince?
2,
Two?
yes, sir.
Yeah, so the one that would not have gotten a bid now knows the other
Right,
one's
it-
right.
the
So I
cat's
think
out of the
that's
bag,
what
you
Mr.
know.
Doyle's discussion is that, okay, now maybe we need to change that a little bit. And then when you open up for bid again, you could get 3 this time, if there's so
Yep,
many companies
or
out there.
more,
So
yeah.
we need to, okay.
Sure.
All right.
Mr. Merrill?
Okay, what Mr. Dahl said, as far as if we do that and we look at it that way, maybe we should word it as being revised. Because if we're gonna put some different, specs in there, it would really be like we're revising it.
Well, it's gonna be the same specs, just quantities. We'll change the
Right.
quantities
But
of
you know
each
what
of
I'm
the.
saying, it's still kind of revising, I'm saying it's still, instead of saying rejecting, is what I'm saying, Because it still would be different, a few little things in it, Revising it is basically almost the same thing.
quantity makes them
You know?
different.
It's a different quantity.
Right.
We're just not accepting,
Can't
Right, but I
accept-
know, but I'm saying, if we revising it,
revise the.
we're still
project.
revising it as far as the wording and coming back with something different.
I mean, we have specific things we need to do relative to this project. I don't know if we can change the spec all that much. We have rehab we need to do
Right.
in a certain way.
Well, that's
it-
just suggesting if we're gonna look at it that way, like y'all
Yeah.
talking about.
We,
That's what I'm saying.
well, I'll get the engineers to take a look and see if they can do that.
Okay.
Yes, Mr.
I wanted to ask
Mr.
a
Wright?
question, I've been out of commotion for a while. Why are they bidding this project out?
Why they bidding it? It's part of the,
It's continuation of sewer rehab.
Service.
Yeah.
Ma'am?
Of the service?
yeah,
The
sewer
collection
rehab.
lines
Yeah.
for the sewer service? Yes,
Okay,
yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
And it's
Collection
an
lines.
Just wanted to be
it's an
sure.
LCDBG grant also.
Yeah, I know.
It's LCDBG grant. So, okay, well, Mr. Lewis?
I just have one comment.
Sure,
The Daily Iberian is our official journal.
right.
You would think Mr. Will Chapman, as the chief editor for the paper, would know better. And I know responsibility is handed down than to cause this kind of chaos. Yes, sir, chaos that's occurring here tonight. I would think, like I just said, the paper would know better. Was it something on our part?
No, it was not our part.
We didn't do?
We sent them a letter which said 3 times in 30 days, and they only published it 2 times.
It was a mistake.
So we did it the right way.
Right. Okay,
It was done according
all
to
right.
regulations.
Your boss is aware of that? I'm sure he's aware of that by now.
Yes, then,
Yeah, well, you work for him, and then
okay,
you cover all
right,
meetings.
this is, okay, let's just vote our machines as to whether or not we can go ahead and rebid this project. We're not accepting these bids, and we will rebid it.
So a yes vote means
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next
a note
agenda
that in
item, Madam Clerk, is a resolution.
Resolution to offer for sale certain properties owned by the city of New Iberia at various locations to interested parties. May I go around and pull them up? the
Sure.
location on the
And
screen?
if we could just get it on the floor, and I'll explain to you what we're doing.
Motion.
A motion by Mr.
Second.
Begno and a second by Mr. Doyle. We have been looking at all of the city properties that are actually surplus. This is not adjudicated properties. This is property that city owns that we have no use for, that all we're doing is maintaining it. And we've been working with Mr. Pat Caffrey, to help us to get an appraisal on the property, to give us a value. We have just a few that we brought before you tonight to discuss. We thought we'd try with a few and see what we can do with these, if we can sell them. As y'all know, we're looking at possibly selling the property on Admiral Doyle. So we have some other small areas that we could possibly sell. And it would be better for us to put money in the city's coffers, and rather than to continue to spend money to maintain these properties. So we have a PowerPoint, and, well, you can look up here. I don't know if y'all want, do y'all need the lights out? Do y'all need to, can y'all see? And Mr. Caffrey's gonna go through these properties and just explain to you. Mr. Sweer?
Capri, Y'all appraising that at full value right now?
Mr. Swear, can I give the council a quick overview of how we got to this point, and then I'll address that? Several months ago, Ms. Jane Bro contacted me and said that the city had quite a number of not adjudicated, maybe some adjudicated, but owned properties that were becoming a burden to maintain, weren't being used, and it might be in the city's best interest to sell them to relieve the city of the burden of having to maintain them, and also to put money in the city coffers. We looked at possibly 20 to 30 to 40 properties, and we whittled down the list of properties that were immediately saleable to the ones you see on this spreadsheet. The way I arrived at the value is I have an automated comparative market analysis program within our MLS system that I use to insert data. I came up with a high figure, with a low figure, and then a recommended listing price. Not in every case that I go with the recommended listing price. The first lot that you see is on the corner of Hopkins and Pershing Street. It's 50 by 150. It's a total of 7,500 square feet. It's zoned C3 commercial. The recommended listing price from my comparative market analysis was $15,167. I thought that was a little bit too much. I listed it, I recommend listing it at $13,250 or $1.76 a square foot. That's basically how I came up with the values in each instance.
Like any other property you do list, and that y'all always ask for one price, or you're willing to negotiate on it?
Mr. Swear, I tell people all the time that two people in the dance, the buyer and the seller, and it takes two people to arrive at that decision. So the city in this case is the seller. The buyer's gonna come in and say, man, we like this, but yeah, it's up to you whether you wanna negotiate or not. I negotiate every day for a living. So I think, yeah, you might wanna do that.
You can do it better than we can, because you know properties.
Well,
I trust you better than
after
we do.
38 years, I better know something. So this is the first property, and my recommendation is slightly below what the computer recommended, you could say. The next property is actually tract 1 and 2. Tract 1 is 0.70 acres, tract 2 is 6.72 acres, and all of this is located directly across from the city barn. It's very irregular shaped. You can kind of see it outlined in blue. It's zoned open land at the moment. The recommended list price on this property was $40,000. I think we can get more for it than that. My recommendation is going to be the higher of the values recommended, $49,000 or $6,600 an acre on a per acre basis. It's zoned open land, but I think it's probably going to be some type of residential development.
I got a question for you.
Yes, sir?
My question is, okay, out of all these properties you have on here,
Okay.
you know, these you picked because do you think that they're sellable quicker than all the other properties?
We pick them primarily because they have no impediment to selling them, such as maybe a title issue or figuring out if the city really and truly actually owns them. There's another tract that was listed on the list that we're not really sure yet if the city actually has title to it. Mr. DeQueer is looking into that. There's small parks that the city doesn't use anymore that you may take part of and sell and keep part of for a park.
Okay.
There are 2 lots on Santiago Street. There are actually 4 lots, 2 of which the city might want to keep for a park. So we're not going to sell all 4 lots. We're only going to sell the 2 listed on the spreadsheet.
So the sales of these would be pretty quick without a lot of legal.
Not necessarily.
A lot of legal stuff.
Not
Well, I'm
when you
saying
say
for,
put-
you know, like what you're talking about as far as titles and things
Hopefully,
like that.
there won't be
clear.
any hurdles with respect to title or other legal impediments on
All right.
these.
Okay.
The fair question is, these on this list is clear, city-owned,
it-
no,
As far as we know, right now.
well, it's up here tonight, I'm
And
assuming.
the reason I'm asking,
Well-
because when bids come about, that's why I was questioning that.
when bids come about, it's up to the buyer to determine if the property's got a clear title or not, and that's not gonna happen until somebody actually looks into it. If there are title problems, it's the city's obligation to try to remedy them.
Right,
If they can't be remedied, you gotta return the buyer's deposit and he goes about his way.
okay.
But we've checked, I mean.
Yeah,
Right,
well,
so
that's what I'm about to
that's
say.
what I
Mr.
want.
DeQuier has been working on
Right,
these.
right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna flip to the next one. This is a lot that is actually part of the Bruner property. It's about 20,000 square feet, which is roughly a half an acre. It's also zoned open land. The recommended price on this property was 17,583 by the computer. I think we can maybe get a little bit more for it. I'd like to list it at 20,000. It's a corner lot, it's got a lot of
Nice piece of
visibility.
property right there.
It's across from the library.
Yes, sir.
Right.
That is correct.
That's a nice property.
It's flooded.
It does.
The next property is a small lot on the corner of West Washington and St. Jude. It's 50 by 90, it's very small, but it's zoned light industrial. Let me see what the computer model said. The computer model said to list it for 13,000. I think because of its size, that's pretty overpriced. I'd like to list it at 9,000. You know, the object is to put something on the market at a figure that somebody can pay for it and do something with. It's not to overprice it. The next properties are, you actually own 4 lots on Santiago Street, but we're gonna only put 2 of them on the market now. Let's see,
That's right behind the school.
yeah, that's right behind the school. The computer model recommended that we list them at $15,336 per lot, and I agree with that. That's about $1.60 a square foot. These are zoned R1 residential. Now, this property is behind Southport subdivision. It may have been part of the subdivision at one time. It's about 3.97 acres, but it's got some problems. It's got a tremendous utility easement and a gas line that goes through part of it. That gas line and utility easement also goes through the adjoining lots, which we'll look at next. The recommended list price on this property was 34,000, but because of the right-of-ways and the easements that really damage it, I'm gonna recommend that we list it at 20,000. And not only that, I think it should be sold with these 16 lots that adjoin it. It's right below the 16 lots. I don't think there's any way for a developer to buy this and effectively do anything with it. The easements, you can't see it on this map, but they actually go through the middle of all of
Right.
those lots. It's really, somebody's gonna have to be very creative.
Right.
I recommend that we list all of these lots at a bulk price of $99,715 and hope we can sell it.
I see Mr. DeCourt back there. I know he's a creative fella.
Well, these are all subdivided now?
The lots are. But the problem is, you got either, and I'd have to look at the plat to refresh my memory, but I know on the 16 lots, there's a gas line that actually goes right through the middle of them, in addition to the 4 lots just above Montaigne Street. They're actually gas lines that go through those. You could build something on them, but you'd really have to be careful.
Yeah.
In addition to having to deal with the subdivision setbacks. Because the subdivision also has restrictions that these lots are still part of. So you gotta deal with the setbacks and the gas line, and you really gotta be careful if you put something on these properties. So, you know, $6,600 a lot is pretty cheap, but man, it's gonna be a challenge to do something with those
But
things.
someone could come in and buy the whole thing and make it one parcel of land and not
They could have, they'd have to go through an abandonment process, abandon all of, I don't think they would do that. I think they'd figure out how to make what they had work. And that's what I'm hoping we can find, somebody to make it work. But those are my recommendations for listing price. You know, what you actually take for them is whatever the best offer's gonna be.
I mean, we'll have to advertise and go through all the proper procedures that you have to do to sell surplus property in the city. Yes, sir.
That's what I was about to ask, Mayor. The procedure for the public to be able to bid on these houses or lots, I'm sorry, is it a time period? Is it a bidding thing? How is the process gonna work?
Well, I would actually list them just like I would do any other property. Put them into the multiple listing system, offer them publicly. You never know when you're gonna get an offer. You never know when somebody's gonna come in and bid. You know, I have a young man looking for a spot for a mechanic shop. He may be interested in this lot, or he may decide to lease a building and not build anything now. It just depends. You never know when you're gonna get an offer on something.
So every offer that we get, you'll be handling the offer and commissions would go to you
Yes,
for the sale of the lots?
yes, hopefully.
And then we'll
You
have,
have to have a separate ordinance for each one.
Right, for
and
each
public
one.
hearing, and that's when they would actually become part of the.
So if.
same process we just did with that affordable furniture on Admiral Doyle. They came with an offer, so then, you know, we had to have an ordinance, the council had to approve it, we had to advertise, because you have to give other people the opportunity
Right.
to buy it.
Okay. So you
So-
mean if someone comes with an offer and, at that point, the mayor can accept the offer or not? We don't have a time period, we have to wait?
I think she would have to accept the offer, subject to the
To-
limiting conditions
Right.
of advertisement and,
Title 33,
Okay.
Yeah.
Section
Yeah.
47.
I think any contract that we sign, whether it be my contract or an actual buy-sell agreement, is gonna be subject to whatever the city requirements are.
Okay.
When he gets a piece of property and somebody's interested in it, then we're gonna get with Scott, and we'll have to start that process of having an ordinance and coming to the council.
And I'll have
We
to
won't sell
explain that to
anything
any
without your
potential
approval.
buyer. They'll have to
Right, they'll-
understand that the city's got
To
specific
advertise.
requirements that they
Right.
have to follow.
That's what I mean.
You know, they might be getting a good deal, but there's gonna be a few hurdles that they gotta go through.
Right. And we just thought if y'all are in agreement, that we would start with these properties, and we're gonna continue to do research on all the other properties that we have that are surplus, that we're just cutting grass. I think Leroy had figured at one point that we were spending around $200,000 a year on grass cutting. So it certainly is an advantage to the city to put these properties back in commerce and try and maybe get a return on the property rather than us continuing to maintain it. Mr. Rack?
I wanted to ask a question to you, Mayor. What have we done with the property on Admiral Dole?
We're still working on it.
That's
Still,
what
I
I'm,
thought we
Right,
did.
we're getting close,
Good, good.
getting close.
I have one other question.
Sure.
Mr. Gafford.
Yes, sir.
Because I noticed parish council had some issues with, you got paid to do this, right?
I do this as a part of my general work. I don't ever charge, or hardly ever charge, to do an estimate of what I'm gonna list something for and try to sell it.
He'll get-
It's part of my fee.
He'll get
When I-
paid when we sell the property.
Yeah, when I sell the property,
Okay,
I'll
because
get
I know
paid.
the parish council has an issue
He'll
with
get paid.
insurance with a particular fellow that volunteered when Mr. Freyu was
Oh,
parish
yeah, I
president
remember that.
to
Yeah.
do that, and I just don't wanna
No,
get
I
into
do
that
this.
because
No,
I
no,
wanna pay you.
I do
I
this.
don't want you to do it for free.
I
won't
understand,
pay you.
and I appreciate that very much. I'll
Because
remember
you're
that.
more liable and responsible if I'm paying you. Yeah, for your
I'll
opinions.
remember
or-
that for a long time, Mr. Lewis. Thank you very much.
Okay.
But I do this routinely.
Well, I knew you're a good fella, and
Right.
the other fella was a good fella,
Right.
you know, but, yeah, I just want to make sure.
The best thing about what I do is, if I don't produce, I don't get paid.
Okay, that's a good deal.
Any other questions?
We just tried, this is
Looks like
terrible.
you have struck a nerve.
Who
Oh,
just made the
got me.
motion? We didn't write it. The motion and the second to put this on the floor.
A motion.
The second,
made-
didn't you?
Yeah, well, you-
Calvin and then
All
Dane seconded
right,
it.
all right.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I would just ask you to vote your machines, and it would just give him, Mr. Caffrey, the opportunity to start listing the property and trying to get it out in the market. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you, Mayor and
We'll be coming back
Council.
to you with more property as we get it cleared. Okay, next is announcements. The next city council meeting is going to be held on March the 1st. And at this time, we need a motion to adjourn and open the budget meeting. Motion by Mr. Swear.
Second.
Second by Ms. Roback. And we have Ms. Fayetta Dupree here. Oh, we did put a letter at your desk, DOTD, about
Right.
crosswalk and all.
Who had requested that?
Parker Templeton had spoken to them.
Okay, that's what I wanted to, I couldn't remember.
Okay,
The hospital.
we're just, it's a committee meeting, so it's just a meeting. We're gonna get started, and he's gonna film, because it's only 10 after 6, so we have time. And Fayette, I'm gonna turn the floor over to Fayette and let her go over the financials with you.
Okay, everyone should have gotten in their packet the financials for December 31st. This is the 2 months of the fiscal year. And also the sales tax collection recap. So I'm going to go over these with you just briefly. And if y'all have any questions as I'm going through it, or, want more information, just stop me and ask me. The first thing I was going to go over was the sales tax collections. I believe there might have been some question as to how the percent change from the 2 years was being calculated. So this is for the first 3 months collections. It goes through January. The total that we've collected so far this year is $3,495,978. And last year, for the same 3 months, we collected $3,715,631. So when you take the difference between those two and divide it into last year's number, our percent decrease is 5.91%. We actually budgeted a 5% decrease, so we're a little bit off, but not too far. Does anybody have questions on
I have
that?
a question.
Yes, sir.
When we budgeted 5% decrease for the year,
Correct.
not for 3 months, correct? And when we got the report reflects 2 months of our budget, but our taxes is 3 months.
Yeah, and that's because of the accrual basis. That first month is actually thrown back into our fiscal year 15 whenever we do our audit. And so this is our actual collections. This is more of a cash basis. So that's why the number here won't agree to the report. It's just by that first month.
What's remarkable about, you're talking about the percentages, and if you compare it to last year, we had one month was up, 2 months were down, and this year every month was down. And in the month that we were up, in November was 2.95%, and this year we're down 10.11%. I mean, that's major.
Yeah.
And but I was just trying to understand that the budget that we're going through is on a 2-month period of so far, correct?
Right, in our report
Yeah.
here. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other
You did-
questions?
The 5% you said is an average, right, is what you're saying?
That's the total so
Two-
far for the
the 2
first 3 months, comparing this time period to last year.
And then our next budget meeting, you're gonna go from January until
Well, I'm gonna have February or,
February.
yeah, it's every month, every
No,
two,
every quarter.
so there'll be 2 more months.
And then, but you still take an average to give
Well,
us
it'll-
our percentage
Yeah,
increase
it's-
or increase.
Yeah, an average, but I'm taking like the actual for that time period compared to the
Okay, last
year.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
yeah.
Okay.
And we'll continue to watch it. We don't have to do a budget adjustment at this time. Hopefully, things will turn around, but,
Mayor, I just would like to say, you know, with the economy, some while ago going down, I could see it. Maybe, you, my colleagues couldn't see it. I offered a proposal, to kind of serve as a stimulus or incentive for this council to consider, and it was rejected. I'm putting y'all on notice now. I will offer at some point that same opportunity to create a tax base for the city, where we have bodies and people coming into the city. And it, Ms. Broy, will probably have to go back to planning and zoning again. But I talked about potential mobile homes coming back into certain areas of the district. I thought Mr. Trey Hike did an excellent job, and Ms. Bro as well, in defining the areas to help create revenue. People are leaving our cities, and some lots and spots that are empty. It would be in the city's best interest to reconsider what was done many years ago in a rush situation. I'd rather have families here than empty lots. So I'm putting this council on notice that at some point I will be asking this council and planning and zoning to reconsider. Mobile homes in certain areas is a tax base for the city. It brings family and children. And in these economic times, when the big people making the oil money, now they're looking for some relief. They're filing bankruptcy and everything else. Thank God we haven't heard of anybody shooting themselves in the head because they went by a RV, a $200,000-300,000 house, and now they can't afford it. So I offered that a while ago, and it's election year, and I'm gonna offer it again, and let the chips fall where they meet. Thank you.
okay, can we stay with the,
I just want to
agenda?
ask a question.
Well, I have,
Yes.
I'm talking finance.
I'm sorry?
A question on the statement you made. Who brought up the idea of getting rid of mobile home in the city? Because if you're on the,
I don't remember who brought it up, Mr. Wright, but it was voted on by the council.
yeah, because that was a bad move, and we lost a lot of people to Youngsville, to my knowledge, because we have property out there, and several people wanted to buy, to move out there. Yes, we lost a lot of revenue on the land and on the mobile home, but it's gonna be hard to bring it back. Because we tried. I will vote for it, but in certain areas, but it's gonna be hard.
Let's get back to, our
budget.
financials, if you don't mind. We're going back to the summary.
Mayor,
Yeah,
and
that's-
with all due respect, I don't think I strayed off from financial, because I'm trying to build, bringing families is money, and they spending money. So I don't think I strayed off from, I'm just putting the council on alert. Revenue, when I talked about revenue some time ago, it looked like it fell on some ears, but not enough ears. And that's all I'm saying. I talked about people moving out of the city and generating a tax base for the city, where it would be allowed in certain areas. Mr. Trey Hike did an excellent job in planning and zoning, and this council rejected. So I'm talking revenue. How to help build this thing when people moving to Youngsville and Broussard, and we losing revenue, they moving out of the city into Iberia.
Okay, can we get back though on to?
Yes, ma'am, we sure can.
Ms. Dupre?
Okay, the next page I was gonna go over is this recap that, you should have in your packet. And I'm thinking you probably should be familiar with it. It looks like it's the same thing Kim was submitting to y'all. So we're at 2 months right now, and we should be at about 16.67% of budget. And if you look down, what I'm gonna do is just talk about the ones that, are a little bit off this percent. And based on what I've seen, everything's pretty much, nothing's out of the ordinary, but I'm just gonna mention some things. If you look at the revenue side, which is the left column, administration, we budgeted 13,000, and so far we have 36,860, so we're actually at 284% of budget. And the reason for that is there was a sale of adjudicated property on St. Mary for 33,760. So that's what that big variance is about. And then I'm just gonna stay with the revenue side first. If you look at finance, we're at 27%, and that's because all the property taxes are recognized at the beginning of the fiscal year, so that's throwing that off some. And the same thing for parks and recreation and public works. Those are all related to the ad valorem property taxes. If you look at expenses, everything is pretty much where it should be. The only one that's a little bit high is finance, is 22.88%. And that's because there was the payment for computer maintenance, which is for the whole year, was $32,454. If you were to take that out, we would be at 16.9%. So anyway, that's pretty much the only things I was going to highlight. If y'all have any questions, though, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions?
Well,
Mr. Daw?
they have, are we going through each department, or can I
Oh.
just ask a question now?
You can ask a question now. I think basically if you have a question,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay, on, like on a fire department, it looks like that we done exceeded the, cost of the legals already for the year.
We have, our fire chief here and he can address it.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, look, yeah, Mr.
Yeah, you saw that one.
Copel.
You might remember last year, that line was budgeted at 15,000. So we decided at the end of the year, I think we still had 10,000 left. We dropped it to 5. Right after y'all adopted the budget, we got the final court costs for the firefighters lawsuit and Barnes and Wilkes' final bill, which exceeded the $5,000. Instead of transferring money from last year's budget into this year, we just let it wash out, said we wouldn't use it anymore. So we didn't spend any in this budget year. It's from prior budget years that came in.
But we adopted it for this budget year.
You adopted the 5,000. Right after you adopted it, we got over 5,000 in bills from last year's budget on that lawsuit.
So I know we adopt the budget as department, not as a line item, but if you need more legal fees, you just take it from the department, or would you have to come back? I mean,
Well, it depends if he has something in another line item. As long, you can move from one line item to another
Yeah.
within the department. So if he has money in another line item, he can move
Yeah.
it. If it comes to a
He said he
point
got more than
where he
$5,000
doesn't have
left.
enough money in his budget to move from one other area, then he'll have to come back for a budget
Yeah, because
amendment.
I didn't want to have to come in and
Right.
move money from last year, because we may not use it. I mean, I don't foresee anything in the near future that we're gonna be using illegal. It was just in there just in case, so knock on wood. So, I mean.
No, I
we
just
left it
noticed
there.
that, and that's why.
Yeah, well, I noticed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay, thank you very much. Okay, any other questions? This is a summary, it's just a recap.
Yeah, and if y'all, if you want to go through the departments, we can. It's up to y'all.
And that's why I just wanted to ask you. There's no need to, because we're so early in the year.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I just seen that, and you know, the only department that has some, revenue and expense issue is the permit department, but that changes so much. It's like we're spending about 10 grand more in expense than we have in revenue so far, but that department changes depending on
Yeah.
the growth of
Right,
construction.
right, yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Do you
Got
have,
off easy.
do you have any other questions?
They dropping my flowers?
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Don't take it
but-
personal,
I
don't.
won't.
Motion by Mr. Swear to adjourn. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.